Hey guys, welcome back. It is May 1st today, which is awesome. CF Awareness Month. So this seems sort of like an appropriate topic to roll right into. So let's talk about transplants.
I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.
So the first time that my wife and I ever had the transplant discussion was about 3 years ago, late 2014, early 2015, when I was in a period where my lung function was in a steady decline for about 6 to 8 months. And it had fallen down into the mid to low 20s. And we had tried everything with my care team, from IV antibiotics to oral antibiotics to rest to different inhaled antibiotics, and couldn't figure out what was causing it. And it had been a long time and lots of appointments. And at one of our clinic visits, after several months of this decline, we'd done the test. We were already disappointed because my lung function had dropped again. I was having a hard time walking. I did a test for my oxygen levels, and they were low. And the doctor came in and told us that we needed to discuss the real possibility of having a double lung transplant. And that was really the first time I'd ever thought about it, and my wife had really ever thought that it was a real possibility, right? We talked about it, it had been in the back of the minds, but never like, it was kind of that, oh shit, excuse my French, but that moment, like, is here. And I remember the initial frustration and anger that had gotten this far, and then being overcome with sadness and fear and crying because I didn't know what was next. And, in my mind at one point, it meant like, okay, like, this is it. Like, we're not going to bring this lung function back, and this is the only step that we can take. And so the doctor gave us a few minutes to talk to each other and sort of calm each other down and work through it a little bit, and talk about it. And when they came back in, we had lots of questions and got as much information from them as we could. And then began to process that, right? Process it with family, and process it with friends and with siblings and with each other. And eventually we decided that it was something we needed to look at, so that if it came to that, I could continue to try to have more years with my family and my friends and my parents. And so I hesitated for a while to schedule the appointment. But I did, and I struggled with it because it meant, sort of, that was it, and the CF, sort of, my CF lungs, and that at some point, like, those CFTR modulator treatments and all the exciting research coming down the pike may not be able to be as beneficial for me as I was hoping, and maybe be able to save the lungs that I had. And so I made the appointment, and thankfully, by the time I made the appointment, my lungs had stabilized, my lung function had stabilized, and actually started to increase slightly into the upper 20s and low 30s, where it sits around now. And so for the past 3 years, 2 years, I see the transplant teams up at Hopkins every 6 months. Luckily, one of the care team doctors on the CF side is also on the transplant side, and so there's a lot of crossover. But for me right now, those appointments every 6 months are precautionary. I go in, I meet with the nurses and the different transplant doctors so that I'm familiar with them and they're familiar with me. We continue to review the process of what it entails and answer more questions if I have them. But it's really there so that if my lung function ever does fall like that again, I can jump right into the tests and different and the process to get listed, so that it's not a whole new thing for me. And so that's where we are with that right now. It's still something that I look back on, and to this day, that I get nervous about and scared about. But I have seen the success and the happiness that a lung transplant can bring, and I've also seen the other side of that, other health issues that you get when you get a transplant, and what you trade out an old set of lungs and problems with those for a new set of lungs, but other issues that those bring, and the hard times that rejection can bring, and waiting for lungs that never come. And so it still fills me with a lot of fear and anxiety, but also over the past 3 or 4 years, I've become more accepting that it may be a possibility at some point. But I hope that with a lot of the new advancements that are coming out with CF, that I can keep these lungs as healthy as possible now, so that I can take advantage of those, and stave off that transplant a little longer. And it's becoming a more and more of an option for us with CF at sort of that end stage, when you can no longer rely on your old lungs to keep you healthy, and to provide you the oxygen that you need to maintain your body. And so I think it's important that you get all the facts before you jump into a decision like that. Talking with your care team, with your parents if you have them, with your siblings, with your spouse, whoever it is that you rely on as your support system, to really dive in to see when is that moment right for you, right? There's some people who go years and years on low lung function with oxygen, and they can maintain and survive that way, and that's fine with them. The discussion I always had with my team and my wife and my family was, it will be an option when I feel like my day-to-day life is so hindered by this disease that I can't be the person and the father and the spouse and the family member and the brother and sister, that I know I can be on a regular basis. And whenever that moment comes, then that's when we'll look at that option. Hopefully that's not for a long time for me, especially with some of the new advancements that are happening with the CFTR modulators and all these other drugs. I'm hopeful that I may be able to stave that off for a while. But if I can't, then I know at least that there's another potential opportunity out there for me, to get some more years with my family, and even potentially even breathe a little bit easier than I do now. So in closing, I guess I would say is, transplant is such an individual opinion for every single person, and it really depends on what your care team thinks, what you think as a person yourself with CF, and then you got to rely on your support team to think about how it's going to impact them, and are you going to have the support system to go through it. And to me, they're a avenue to prolong your life when CF tries to cut it short, and that's not something to take lightly, because again, there's a lot of complications that come with a lung transplant. Just because you got a new set of windbags doesn't mean you get rid of CF. It's like you trade one problem for another set of problems, and that's a lot to weigh and consider and think about. And ultimately it comes down to you and what you're willing to take on. And so with that, I will close it for this week. Next week we've got our guest speaker, who I hope you guys will enjoy. I'm excited to see what they have to say as well. And then we'll be off for 2 weeks, and we'll see you again. So lots of great things happening over the next 3 weeks or so. Let's keep in touch over social media, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon, all right? Take care. Happy May. Happy warmer weather for those of you that are finally getting it. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.